Andy Murray's damaged hip hobbled him at the Australian Open and has jeopardized his plan to play one last Wimbledon in July before retiring. But there is one Hail Mary play left that could extend Murray's career and perhaps set up an improbable comeback. Murray is contemplating a surgery in New York with Dr. Edwin Su, a 47-year-old surgeon who loves tennis. Dr. Su specializes in a relatively new, but controversial, hip resurfacing procedure that shaves the bone and covers it in a full circle by cobalt chromium metal. Dr. Su's procedure has already saved American doubles star Bob Bryan's career with a 90-minute operation in August 2018. Bryan, 40 years old, was told by Dr. Su he would need 8 months to fully recover. 5 months later, he served, sprinted and volleyed in 4 doubles matches with his twin brother, Mike, at the Australian Open. He blew the doors off anything I thought possible, Dr. Su said. Now Dr. Su is talking with Murray about trying the same procedure. The 31-year-old British star, known for his meticulous nature, is likely considering all his options and may well stay in England, perhaps with Dr. Derek McMahon, who invented the implant currently being used today. Murray has tried to recover as much as possible. He wasn't playing in tournaments last year. He often would rehab for 2.5 hours in the morning and then spend 1.5 hours in a pool. He would then receive up to 3 hours of treatment. Murray even did cartwheels, handstands and mini jumps at the advice of Bill Knowles, a reconditioning expert. Murray is keeping in touch with Bryan, as well. I'm just telling him, I feel great, quality of life is great, practices are going well, Bryan said. Maybe I'm not 100% yet, but I'm only at 5 months. Asked if he would attempt the surgery like Bryan, Murray didn't sound confident. It's a really big operation, he said. There's no guarantees that you can come back from that. Bryan is the first professional tennis player to do it and succeed. But athletes from other sports have also recovered, including from the NHL, NBA and MLB. Recreational athletes have also returned to the sports they love. I have tons of people wanting to do CrossFit or boot camp exercises, or run a Tough Mudder, or do triathlons, Dr. Su said. These are all potential candidates for the procedure. Bob Bryan, left, and Mike Bryan compete at the Australian Open. Photo, Julian Finney, Getty Images for Bryan. The climb from possible retirement to a remarkable comeback started last May. In a doubles match in Madrid, Bob and Mike had to forfeit when Bob's hip became a full-blown injury. As Mike played on with fellow American Jack Sock, Bob tried every non-surgical measure available. He had injections of cortisone and hyaluronic acid, a lubricating fluid injection, as well as needle stimulation. He tried acupuncture, aquatherapy and ARP wave, which is a stimulator. He received heavy massages and attempted belt distraction by manually pulling on his joint to try to create space. He then went to Dr. Brian Kelly, an orthopedic surgeon who specializes in sports treatment. Dr. Kelly told Bryan that he had little to no cartilage, which made him ineligible for this type of surgery. The only chance Bryan had left surgery from Dr. Su grew up in Long Island playing table tennis with the hope that he could someday reach the Olympics. But by age 12, he switched to regular tennis. He wasn't good enough to be a top college player, but that didn't matter. He wanted to be a doctor like his father, who was a neurologist. While in training at the Hospital for Special Surgery in New York, Dr. Su was struck by a visit from a renowned California surgeon, Dr. Harlan Amstutz. Dr. Amstutz spoke about resurfacing hips, rather than removing and replacing them. Done correctly, the ball is spherical and smooth, saving as much of the patient's own femoral bone as possible. The operation, ideally, can be effective for 15 to 20 years. Dr. Su, who graduated from Harvard, loved the idea. He took additional training in Los Angeles and England, with Dr. McMahon. DRSU now does resurfacing about 350 times a year, and has done thousands in his 15-year career. Resurfacing surgery became controversial when Johnson. The company settled over its hip treatment failure for $2.5 billion in 2013. But the current resurfacing is different than the Johnson. There are more and more studies that show that resurfacing patients are more active than hip replacement patients down the road, he said. Hip resurfacing has had both successes and failures in sports. David Jones, a 67-year-old former banker who lives in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, had surgery in 2015. Just 18 months later, he finished 7th in a 100-mile race called Tunnel Hill 100, in Vienna, Ill. His time, 17 hours and 34 minutes, still stands as an American record for men aged 65 and up. The all-time record is just 28 minutes faster. "The more I use it, the better it functions," Jones said of his hip. "I'm testing it to the max. But running is simpler than basketball or tennis, which involve sharp stops and explosive movement." Thiago Splitter, a former center for the San Antonio Spurs, retired in 2017 after playing just 8 games after his surgery. He said the surgery worked well, but he quickly developed a problem with his other hip and decided he could no longer compete. Gerald Henderson Jr., an NBA shooting guard, tried to come back after hip surgery but was stopped by an Achilles tendon rupture. Andy Murray lost in 5 sets to Roberto Bautista Agut at the Australian Open. Photo, Lucy Nicholson, Reuters. Years ago, results began to show more problems from the surgery in women than men. That led doctors to shy away from resurfacing in women's hips. DRSU said he occasionally does resurfacing for women who have a large bone structure, such as athletes. Based on how well Murray played in his one match at the Australian Open, he seems like a candidate for successful surgery. The question is, will he regain the power, explosiveness and the quickness to do what he needs to do with his type of game, Su said. "I think it's possible, and the reason I say that is because he's already doing it with a terribly arthritic hip. For now, Murray could keep an eye on Brian, who has done the unthinkable in a complex sport." Brian said he's happy to be an experiment, and couldn't be more thankful for Dr. Su's work. He also has kind words for Dr. Su's tennis. "He's lightning quick and super solid," Brian said. "I would compare him to David Ferrer."